Hello, middle school students at STEM Launch. Here we go with our spring panorama survey. I am excited to hear what you have to all say. So, hopefully, your teacher has already provided you a way to get to the link. Otherwise, pause and type it into your browser on your Chromebook and then log in using your student ID number. That's the same number you use to get your lunch. We're taking two surveys today. We're going to start with the student SEL skills and competencies. This is the one all about you that helps to know how you are doing in terms of your emotions and how you can regulate. All right, these first five questions are all about how you feel about your current classes. We're talking about all of your classes, including electives, not just the class you're taking this survey in today. First question is, how sure are you that you can complete all the work that is assigned in your classes? I can't complete any of them would be this one. I'm only a little bit sure, or I can only complete a bit of the work. I'm in the middle, or I can complete half of the work. I'm very sure I can complete the work, or I can complete most of the work, or I'm super sure that I can complete the work, / I can complete all of the work, is how you would answer that one. Number two is, when complicated ideas are discussed in class, how sure are you that you can understand the complicated ideas? I can't understand them at all. I can only understand them a bit. I can understand them in the middle or halfway. I'm very sure I can understand them. I can understand most, or I'm super sure, or I can understand all of them. Number three is, how sure are you that you can learn all the material taught in your class? So all the things taught in class. I can't understand or learn any of it, so I'm not at all sure. I'm only a bit sure. I'm in the middle. I can understand maybe half of it or learn half of it. I'm very sure I can learn most of it, or I'm super sure, so I can learn all of it. Four is that, how sure are you that you can do the hardest work that is assigned in class? I'm not at all sure. I don't think I can do any of it. I can do a bit of it. I could do half of it, most of it, or all of it. Five is, how sure are you that you'll remember what you learned in class next year? I'm not at all sure, or I won't remember any of it. I'll only remember a bit of it. I'm in the middle, or I will remember maybe half of it. I'm very sure I'll remember it, so I'll remember most, or I'm super sure I'll remember all of it. Next set of questions is about your performance in school. Whether a person does well or poorly in school depends on lots of things. Some of these things can be changed, and you might think they're easier to change than others. So, in terms of being talented or doing good at something, not just raw talent, doing something well, how sure are you that you can change being talented or doing something well? Not at all, a bit, in the middle, very, or super sure. Next one is effort, putting work into something. Can you change giving a lot of effort? No, I can change it a bit. I can change it in the middle or half of it. I'm very sure I could change it, most of it, or I'm super sure I could change all of the effort I put in. Next is about behavior. How possible is it for you to change behaving while in class? Not at all possible, a bit possible, in the middle, very possible, or it's extremely possible to change behaving while in class, and it is your choice. How possible is it for you to like the subjects that you're studying and change if you like the subject? So, if you didn't like math, can you change that you liked it later in the year or in a different grade level? Not at all. I can only change that a little bit. I'm in the middle. It's very possible to change it, or super possible. 10 is it possible to change how easily you give up? Not at all. Slightly possible, somewhat possible, quite possible, or extremely possible to change how easily you give up. Next one is about, is it possible for you to change your level of intelligence? So, being able to learn something in this case. It's not at all possible. It's only a bit possible. It's somewhat possible. It's very possible or super possible to change your level of intelligence. Pause for a brain break if you need it. Otherwise, let's talk about your behavior. So, answer the questions based on how you respond in different conversations. Point of view, thinking about how someone else thinks about something. Since we've been back from winter break, all these questions will be in the past 30 days. How carefully did you listen to someone else's point of view or how they think about something? Not at all, only a few times, half the time, most of the time, or all the time. Next up, how often did you come to class prepared? So, like a pencil, your notebook, a Chromebook, whatever you needed. Almost never, once in a while, a few times, maybe half the time, most of the time, or almost all the time. How much did you care about other people's feelings? Not at all, only a few times, half the time, most of the time, or all the time. How often do you follow directions in class? Never, only a few times, sometimes, a lot of the time, or most of the time. How well do you get along with students who are different from you? They don't have to be your friends, but can you get along with them if you need to? Not at all, only a little bit in the middle. You can get along with them if you need to, or you almost always get along with them that are people who are different from you. Since we've been back in school, remember all these are since we've been back in school from winter break. How often did you get your work done right away instead of waiting till the last minute? Never, only a few times, sometimes, a lot of the time, or almost all the time. How often were you polite to adults, all the adults in the building? Never, a few times, sometimes, or like half the time, most of the time, or almost all the time. How often did you compliment other people's accomplishments? Almost never, only once in a while, sometimes, a lot of the time, or almost all the time. How often did you pay attention and ignore distractions? Almost never, once in a while, sometimes, or half the time. Most of the time you could pay attention, or almost all the time you paid attention. How clearly were you able to describe your feelings? Not at all you can describe your feelings, only a little bit you can describe your feelings. You can describe your feelings somewhat. You can describe your feelings quite clearly or extremely super clearly using lots of words. How clearly, using feelings words, can you describe your feelings? 22 is when you work independently or by yourself, how often can you stay focused? Never, only a few times, sometimes, slash half the time, almost all of the, or a lot of the time, or almost all of the time. When other people disagree with you, can you be respectful of their views? You don't have to agree with them, but can you be respectful that you disagree? Never, only a little bit in the middle, so like half the time. You can be quite respectful or extremely respectful. How often did you remain calm, even when someone was bothering you or saying bad things? So, if someone is trying to get to bug you, could you stay calm? Never, only a few times, half the time, a lot of the time, or almost all the time. Are you able to stand up for yourself without putting other people down so you can be assertive and speak up for yourself in a respectful way that doesn't hurt other people? No, I can't do that ever. I can only do that a little bit. I can do that half the time. I can do that most of the time or almost all the time. How often did you allow others to speak without interrupting them? I can almost never do that. I only do that once in a while. Sometimes half the time I can let people speak without interrupting them. A lot of the time I allow people to speak or almost all the time I allow people to speak without interrupting them. 27. To what extent were you able to disagree with others without starting an argument? So you can say, I respectfully disagree, or I respectfully agree, and you don't start an argument. I can't do that at all. I can only do that a little bit. I can do that half the time. I can most of the time respectfully disagree with people, or almost all the time respectfully disagree. 28 is about politeness. How often were you polite or kind to other students? Never, only a few times, half the time, a lot of the time, or almost all the time. 29 is how often do you keep your temper under control? So how often can you keep your emotions under control if you are angry? Never, only a few times, half the time, a lot of the time, or almost all the time. Next set of questions is about feelings in general. So, in the past month, when you're feeling pressured, how easily can you stay in control? I can't stay in control at all. I can only slightly stay in control. I can stay somewhat in control. I can stay pretty in control, or I can stay extremely in control when I'm under pressure. 31 is how often are you able to pull yourself out of a bad mood? So, if you're in a bad mood, can you use skills to help get yourself out of that bad mood into a more comfortable feeling? No, only a few times, sometimes or half the time, a lot of the time, or all the time. 32, when everybody around you is angry, can you stay relaxed? How relaxed can you stay using your skills? I can't stay relaxed at all. I can only stay a bit relaxed. I can stay somewhat relaxed in the middle. I can stay very relaxed, or I can stay super relaxed even when people are angry around me. 33, how often are you able to control your emotions when you need to? So it's okay to have big emotions, but when you need to control them, can you? You can say almost never, only a few times, sometimes or half the times I can control them, a lot of the time I can control them, or almost never I can control them. 34 is once you get upset, how often can you get yourself to relax? Almost never. Once I'm upset, it's done for the day. A few times I can get myself to calm back down. Sometimes or half the time I can get myself to calm back down. A lot of the time I can get myself to calm back down, or almost all the time I can get myself to relax. 35, when things go wrong for you, how calm are you able to stay? So even if things don't go as planned, can you stay calm? Not at all, only a little bit. In the middle, you can stay very calm or you can stay super calm. Last set of questions for this survey are the sense of belonging. We would like to know how much you feel like you belong and like you matter at STEM launch. So, in the past month, how well do you feel like people understand you as a person at school? We want to know if you feel seen and heard by staff and students. So you can choose. I don't feel like people get me at all. I only feel like people get me a little bit. I feel like people get me somewhat in the middle. I feel like people get me quite a bit, or I feel like people really get me. 37, how connected do you feel to the adults at your school? Not at all, a little bit, oh, somewhat in the middle. I feel quite connected, or I feel extremely connected to the adults in my building. 38 is how much respect do students show you in your school? Students don't show me any respect, only a little bit. They somewhat show me respect in the middle. Students are quite respectful, pretty respectful, or very extremely super respectful. How much do you matter to other people at this school? Not at all, only a bit. In the middle, somewhat. You matter a lot, or you super extremely matter to other people at school. And 40, overall, how much do you feel like you belong here at STEM Launch? Not at all, only a little bit, somewhat, so in the middle, quite, so you feel like you belong here at STEM Launch, or you extremely feel like you belong. STEM Launch is your place to be. Whew, that was the first survey. So go ahead, pause if you need to, and go to the second survey. This second survey, student supports and environments, is completely anonymous. We would like to know about how we are doing at STEM Launch so that we can make it a better place to be, an even better place to be. The first 5 questions are all about how you feel about your current classes. So, all 5 of your core classes and your electives, not just the class you're taking this survey in now. In your class, how many of your teachers are respectful towards you? None of them, a few, about half, most of them, or all of them. Number 2, if you walked into class upset, how concerned would your teacher be? Not at all, a little bit upset, somewhat upset in the middle. They'd be very concerned that you were upset or super concerned that you were upset. 3, if you came back to visit your class 3 years from now, how many of your teachers would be excited to see you? None of them, a few of them, half of them, most of them, or all of them? When your teacher asks, "How are you?" do you feel like they really want to know? No, I don't think they'd want to know. A few times they actually want to know how I am. Sometimes they want to know, half the time. A lot of the time they actually want to know, or almost all the time they want to know how I am. 5, how many of your teachers would be excited to have you again in the future if they taught a class you were taking in the future? None of them would be excited. A few of them, half of them, most of them, or all of them. These questions are all about being at school, and these are the last questions for the surveys. 6, how often are people disrespectful to other people at your school? Almost never, only a few times. Sometimes people are disrespectful, a lot of the time people are disrespectful, or all the time people are disrespectful. This next question is about positive and negative energy. So, like the feeling or the mood or the vibes of school. Are they good or bad? You can choose positive, awesome, good energy vibes, all the way to very bad energy or vibes. 8 is how often do students get in physical fights at your school? Never, a few times, sometimes, a lot of the time, or almost all the time. 9 is how pleasant or unpleasant is the physical space at your school? So, thinking about like how nice is the actual space of the school, the hallways, the classroom. It's super positive and happy and good, all the way down to very bad. You get to choose. Next one's about bullying. Remember, bullying is like targeted, repeated, negative interactions with someone. How likely is it that someone will be bullied online at school? Not likely at all, a little bit likely, somewhat likely, very likely, or extremely likely. 11, how fair or unfair are the rules for students at this school? So you can choose, are our rules fair and for your safety and for the betterment of learning, or are they unfair and do they not serve a purpose? And everywhere in between, you can choose. 12, how often do you worry about violence at your school? So fights, weapons, things like that. I never worry about that. I only worry about it once in a while. Sometimes I worry about violence. I worry about violence a lot of the time, or all the time I worry about violence. 13 is at your school, how much does the behavior of other students help or hurt your learning? So think about how people behave at school. Is it helpful for your learning, or does it hurt your learning, how people behave at school? And you can choose anywhere in between this spectrum. 14 is if a student is bullied at school, if they're targeted over and over again, is it difficult for them to get help? You can say it's not at all difficult. That means it's good. It's slightly difficult to get help. It's somewhat difficult to get help. It's very difficult to get help, or it's super difficult to get help. 15 is how often do your teachers seem excited to be teaching your classes? They're never excited. They're only excited once in a while. Sometimes half the time they're excited. They're excited a lot of the time, or they're excited almost all the time. 16. At your school, how unfairly do the adults treat students? So, do adults treat students fair or unfair? And you can choose anywhere on that spectrum again. These last set of questions are all about our preschool resource officer, also known as Officer FAM. So, how safe or unsafe do you feel having a school resource officer at our school? You can say you feel very safe, all the way to very unsafe, and anywhere in the middle there. 18 is how comfortable do you feel being around Officer FAM? You can say, I feel super ultra comfortable, or I don't feel comfortable at all, or anywhere in the middle there. 19, how helpful is it to have a school resource officer at your school? Is Officer Fam helpful at your school? Super helpful, or not helpful at all, or anywhere in the middle there? 20 is, how positive or negative has your experience been with school resource officers at your school? So, if you have ever talked to Officer Fam or been around him, you can choose, has it been a good experience or a negative, bad experience, anywhere in the middle? If you have never talked to Officer Fam before, you can choose, I have never interacted with my school resource officer here. We're never choosing this one because we do have a school resource officer. And there we go. That was the end of the survey. Thank you so much, students, for taking it. I can't wait to hear your honest feedback to help make STEM Launch an even better place to be. Have a great day.